13th, 2022 meeting of the USD 305 Board of Education will now come to order. Please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. The first thing on our agenda this evening is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion? Are there any amendments to the agenda? No amendments. Thank you. Do I have a motion, Mr. Grant? Oh, moves. Do I have a second? Dr. Bandre. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda. Any discussion? Then all in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried 6-0. Next on the agenda is recognitions and presentations, starting with the You Make a Difference Award with Ms. Kamian.
Good evening. Staff members are nominated by colleagues to receive a You Make the Difference Award for their support of students and the mission of Salina Public Schools. Board of Education members surprise recipients during their workday with a lapel pin and a handwritten note. Shelby Davis, math coach, Sunset Elementary School. Shelby's relationships with students and colleagues is inspiring. She generously gives her caring smiles and positivity to all. She helps run the school marathon, is on the building leadership team, building belonging committee, district equity council, and so much more. Thank you for making a difference, Shelby. Lynette Froome, Administrative Assistant at South High School. Always ready to take on an extra task, Lynette prevailed when she unexpectedly faced work on the building's student count. Lynette's dedication and detailed attention to the unfamiliar work made sure South High numbers were correctly submitted. Thank you for going above and beyond and making a difference, Lynette. Angela Zajac, pre-K educator at Heartland Early Education. Angela knows relationships are vital to educating our youngest learners, and those she works with have no doubt they are loved. She makes the most of every moment to teach, whether during playtime on the floor, feeding an infant, or changing a diaper. Thank you, Angela, for making a difference. And now we'll move into the Superintendent's Excellence Awards. Tonight, pictures of our students will be taken by Denalyn Vasquez, student photographer intern from South High. We appreciate your work. Our first award goes to a tennis state qualifier at South High School. Will Sophia Burns and Brian Prakaric, her coach, please join Superintendent Exline in the front. And perhaps they have other obligations this evening. There are lots of activities. Congratulations to Sophia Burns, who's a sophomore. Our next group of awards goes to tennis state qualifiers at Central High School. Mackenzie Weishar is the coach, but is unable to be here tonight. Greg Mehring, athletic director, is here in her place. Will you please join Superintendent Exline in the front? And will all the tennis students please line up next to Superintendent Exline? Athletes, as I call your name, please step towards Superintendent Exline so you can receive your award. After you've received your award, please walk to the end of the line and remain standing until all of the students have been recognized. Doubles, Claire Renfro, sophomore. And we'll invite Mr. Mehring to come up and join the group. And Kinsley Foth, sophomore, placed 7th at state. Mallory Renfro, sophomore. And Addison Renfro, sophomore, placed 9th at state. Singles, Janae Montoya, junior, placed 3rd at state. And Caitlin Brupe, sophomore. Please allow the Board of Education to congratulate you now. Next, we recognize golf state qualifiers at South High School. Jason Hooper is the coach. Will you please join Superintendent Exline in the front? And Ryan Stewart is here to fill in this evening. Will our golf students please line up next to them?
They're all basketball players.
And they're all basketball players. So that's a congratulations to Danny Phillips, senior, and Madison Durf, sophomore. Next, we are going to recognize golf state qualifiers at Central High School. Alyssa Waldron is the coach. Will Alyssa and Cindric White please join Superintendent Exline?
Her spot, she's doing officiating for us.
Fantastic, Mr. Maring, thank you. Congratulations to Cindric White. Our next group of awards goes to cross-country state qualifiers at Central High School. Brad Dix is the coach, but was unable to be here this evening. Assistant coach Michael Hare is here in his place. Will you please join Superintendent Exline in the front? And will all cross-country students please line up next to them? Students, as I call your name, please step toward Superintendent Exline so you can receive your award. Caitlin Rupe, sophomore, 5A state champion with a course record time of 17 minutes and 14 seconds. Caitlin is also the 2022 winner of the Bob Timmons Award. Christian Brosi, freshman. Liam Denio Young, freshman. Isaac Howe, freshman. Tayton Morris, freshman. Jack Burt, sophomore. Johnny Holler, sophomore. Cooper Afholder, junior. Baron Talbot, junior. Titus Schaefer, senior. Zach Tibbetts, senior. Please allow the Board of Education to congratulate you. We now recognize students at South High School who competed at the Fort Hays State University Math Relays. Candace Mahoney is the group's sponsor. Will you please join Superintendent Exline in the front, and will all the math students please line up next to them? Students, as I call your name, please step towards Superintendent Excellence. You can receive your award and line up at the end when you're finished, please. The South High Math Relays team placed 6th overall in 4A, 5A, 6A high school category. Summer Fauci Wills, freshman. Julie Lai, freshman. Kate Hull, freshman. Kristen Kenyon, freshman. Joshua Lee Perez, freshman. Raven Caesar, junior. Alexander Muller, senior. William Fulkerson, senior. Jolie Heron, senior. Mahim Raymond, senior. Would you please allow the Board of Education to congratulate you now? Our next group of awards goes to students at Central High School who competed at the Fort Hays State University Math Relays. Matt Dykus is the group sponsor. Will you please join Superintendent Exline in the front? And will all the math students please line up as well? Please step towards Superintendent Exline when I call your name. The South High Math Relays team placed 7th overall in the 4A, 5A, 6A high school category. Brock Dolton, junior. Nathan Goldbach, sophomore. Harper Johnston, senior. Nils Leonard, senior. Alyssa Maas, sophomore. David Pazanese, junior. Elijah Rosano, senior. Colby Schaefer, junior. Titus Schaefer, senior. Valerie Van Zandt, sophomore. And Genesis Wilson, a senior. Please allow the Board of Education to congratulate you now. Our final group of awards goes to our Unified Bowling State Qualifiers, which is a South and Central High Schools combined team. Kevin Miller is the coach, but unable to be here this evening. Assistant coach. He's here. Wonderful. Please join us in the front. And if Assistant Coach Carrie Vandekreek is here as well, she's welcome to join in the front as well. All the Unified Bowling students, please line up as well. When I call your name, please step towards Superintendent Exline to receive your award. Pete Bernardo Wagner, freshman. Dayton Brown, freshman. Camden Calhoun, Jr. Reese Curtis, freshman. Riley Lambeth, sophomore. DeAndre Morton, sophomore. Cheyenne O'Connor, senior. Christopher O'Connor, senior. Aviana Ordonez, senior. Ayala Ordonez, junior. Andrea Ordonez, junior. Danielle Welsh, freshman.
I don't think he's here.
Thank you. Would you please allow the Board of Education to congratulate you now?
Next on the recognitions and presentations agenda is the community survey with Rick Nobles.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for inviting me here tonight. As you know, in October, we completed a 300 complete random digit dial survey to match your population pattern. So we talked to 300 patrons who were registered voters, head of household, and asked them a variety of questions. That gave us a 5.6% margin of error. We started the survey with grading questions because that's pretty easy to get into. So we asked the participants to give us a grade A, B, C, D, F on a variety of things. The top performing areas for the district: quality of facilities, performance of teachers, preparation of students for college, career, and employment, quality of education, performance of principals, and safety of students, all received a mark of over 4, which is fantastic. We have school districts that don't get any marks over 4. So that was really good. Those scores are better than 90% of the districts that we work with, so very good. We then asked open-ended questions: strengths and weaknesses of the school district, or strengths and areas needing improvement. Top of the list for strengths was teachers. The second was don't know, and the third was provides a good education, academics, and curriculum. In terms of areas of need, the number one answer was don't know. That's great. It's the only place you don't know on a survey. People can't come to anything. Number 2 was keeping students safe and gun-free, and you'll see that repeated because of the incident. And number 3, I love this, they know what they're doing, they're experts. So that's really good. Reasons for leaving the district: this is trying to figure out for the students who are leaving the district for either private or parochial school or for another district. Unfortunately, we only had 5 people who said that they had left the district for that reason. So didn't really give us any data that's useful with just that number. The next question we asked was about district concerns. What concerns do you have about the district? That's an open-ended question that we then coded to give us the number of people that answered for any particular answer. Safety of the students and staff, guns, and weapons was the number one response in terms of concerns. Second highest concern was economic impact on the school system slash funding, which of course has nothing to do with you, but people are aware that there's issues there. Next, respondents were asked whether they were concerned about what they see in media about other schools. And I thought this was a really interesting question. Dr. Exline wanted this included, and I didn't think it would amount to much, and I was surprised. More than half the respondents said they were concerned, while 43% said they were not concerned. So you have a lot of people concerned about what they're reading in the media or seeing in the media about school districts from Connecticut or wherever they're at. So that is a concern for the district. How do you deal with that? We then next asked about the district mission and vision statements and how relevant people thought the district's vision and mission statements were. Almost all the participants, 99%, thought the factors were either very relevant or somewhat relevant, which is fairly amazing. You got a group at 99% to agree to anything. The sky is blue would be good. Our next question was awareness of district programs, and these are outstanding scores. Awareness of career technical education offerings, 96%. Extracurricular activities, 95%. Early childhood education services, 92%. Now keep in mind, we're talking to people of all ages in the district, so you've got some seniors who are aware that you have early childhood education services. That's amazing, and it speaks to the job that Jennifer has done in communicating. That's very, very high numbers. We then asked people, do they feel that working in the Salina public schools, do they see that as an excellent job, a good job, a fair job, or a poor place to work? Majority at 84% felt it was either excellent or good, and only 11% thought it was fair. Shifting the boundaries, we asked about shifting the middle school and high school boundaries to maintain similar sized secondary buildings, and more than half of the participants at 66% thought this was a good idea, while only 10% said that it should not happen. Given the history with this, and I was honored to work with the district on the most recent high school boundary change a number of years ago, this was shocking that you had that large of a percentage of the population that was okay with it this time, because there were a lot of people not okay with it the last time we did it. Communication from the district, we asked how you receive news about the district, what information would you like to hear more of? The top answers for news about the district, other than friends and neighbors, because that's always number one, friends and neighbors. That's where people hear about stuff. The other ones, the school district website at 19%, 17% was from kids or grandkids in school, and then you had the newsletter, mailer, social media, and email. And that will provide good data for the communications department to know where to emphasize their work. Top information or news that participants would like to see or hear more about. Again, we have safety measures being taken, guns and threats. I suspect if we did this in 6 months, that wouldn't come up at all. Other popular information items were future district school plans and good success stories of students and staff. Final analysis, the district is doing an outstanding job with communications. Some of the high scores that I've ever seen on this. You should be very pleased and very proud of what's going on at the district. No systemic or worrisome results with regards to strengths in areas or concerns or awareness or any of that. As predicted by the district, concern about media stories from other districts is surprisingly high and would warrant increased communications from the district to counteract some of the wilder stories out there. Good luck with that. It's the only thing that we could say is communication, but it's going to be hard. We were surprised and encouraged by the willingness to consider boundary changes, especially given the history of that issue. And all in all, the district should be ecstatic with the results of this. This is really terrific. Can I answer any questions?
No questions, just thanks for the work. It's good to have things reaffirmed, and
Yes.
method you all used helps
Thank you.
make that very valid, so.
Thank you. It's always fun to come to Salina.
And
Okay.
where are you from?
Kansas City.
Any other questions? No? Then thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda items, which consist of the minutes of the November 8, 2022 regular meeting, the minutes of the November 15th special meeting, the personnel reports, the financial reports, which include the November bills list, the October treasurer's report, the October investment report, the October journal entries, approving encumbrance listing to Learning A to Z for the RAS Plus license renewal in the amount of $58,995. Approve the South High parking lot bid to Hutton Corporation in the amount of $1,291,000. And to approve the request to apply for the Eisenhower Legacy Transportation Program Driver Education Reimbursement Grant in the amount of $20,000. Do I hear a motion for the consent agenda items? Mr. Grant,
We approve the consent agenda items as presented.
do I hear a motion? Do I hear a second? Ms. Casso seconds. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda items. Any discussion?
I do have one quick question. On the South High parking lot, Chris, does that, which parts does it cover? Is it the whole thing on the west side that's currently blacktop, or does it go the part in by the softball field and all that too?
It's just the west side.
Okay,
So it's the moon-shaped parking lot and then the rectangular parking lot south of that by the baseball fields.
got it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I might just, I believe on that also, that's been on our agenda for a while. I think we've not been able to get it done to this point. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're getting it done.
Okay, any other discussion? No? Then all in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried 6-0. Next on the agenda is the public forum, and we have not had anyone request to speak. So we will go on to the next item on the agenda, on the action agenda, which includes the retention incentive for 23-24 with Ms. Wright.
Good evening. Back in July of 2021, this board approved a 2-year plan, incentive plan for our staff here in the district. Those funds used to pay for the plan were from ESSER dollars, and they were helpful in us getting through the pandemic and the effects that the pandemic has had on our ability to retain, recruit and retain quality staff here in the district. Unfortunately, we are still dealing with the repercussions of the pandemic in the staffing arena. And we're here tonight to propose to you a 3rd year of a retention incentive for the staff in the district. It is a little bit different than the proposal you approved last time. What we are asking tonight is that we would like to provide one payment in December of next year to qualifying staff who would qualify into each person, no, let me back up. There are 3 different categories for this retention incentive that a person might fall into one of. The first category would be for those employees who were with us from the beginning of the pandemic, who received the full retention incentive payment in both the 21-22 and the 22-23 school years. They would be eligible for up to $1,500 payment. Then there is a category for employees who received the full retention incentive payment in the 22-23 school year, who remains active as of November 15th next year. They would be eligible for $750 payment. And then any employee who received a partial retention incentive payment this year, so part of the year, who is still active next year on November 15th of 2023, November 15th of 2023, is a lot of dates here, not my strong suit, would receive a incentive payment in up to $500 for the year. Anyone who works part-time, less than 50% of the day, would be eligible for up to 50% of the payment to whatever category they would fall into. And just a point of note, the certified and classified substitutes have already been given a plan that moves through the following year, so they are not included in this one. Anybody have any questions about the proposal? I know I kind of went back and forth with the dates, but basically it's 3 categories for all staff who remain with us next year.
Any questions? I think, go ahead.
It just strikes me as a great use of the ESSER dollars, as long as they last. So it's anything we can do to help teachers and staff feel not only recognized, but more welcomed and everything all the way around, so.
I agree.
plan.
They're our most valuable resource here in the district is our qualified staff.
Then do I hear a motion? You move. Mr. Gardner moves that we approve the retention incentive. Do I hear a second? Dr. Bandry, it's been moved and seconded that we approve this retention incentive. Any discussion?
Madam President, I'm going to excuse myself due to a potential conflict of interest.
Thank you. If there's no more discussion, all in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried, 5-0. Thank you. Next on the agenda is summer school. Ms. Rector.
Well, I come here on behalf of a lot of individuals that did a ton of work last summer and worked with all of our students and just to make these programs successful. So very happy to be here to provide some general highlights and then also to go over the proposal for the 2023 school year or summer school. So some general highlights is that we were able to serve approximately 1,100 students, which was an increase in numbers. And so if you think about in what we had in 2021, we actually had 2 different sessions going. And then last summer, we just had the 1 session. And so we wanted to make sure that we were still able to serve the same number of students, and actually we were able to serve more. So that was really exciting for us. And it's also because of the flexibility and also all of the teachers talking with families and talking with students to get them to partake in that opportunity. We had 1 high school location, which was a South High School, and so we were able to serve both high school and middle school at South High School. We had 2 elementary locations, Cottonwood and Sunset, and so this was kind of that first year that we actually went into kind of a feeder format in the sense that most of the students that went to Cottonwood would be students that would then feed up into Lakewood and Central High School, and then the students that went to Sunset were the ones that would feed to South Middle School and South High School. And so it really kind of allowed those students to get to know each other, that they would soon be getting to know them in middle school. Then our class sizes we had an average of about 15 students per class size, so this is smaller than what you would see during the regular school year, and so that really allows for that individualized attention. We had a licensed social worker at each elementary site this year, which really helped us to make sure that we were meeting the needs of our students, and this was an added benefit that I think that really allowed students to have some of that social emotional support that they might need to be able to be there that whole morning. Our food resources, we worked with the summer lunch program, and so our food service department does a really nice job in the sense of making sure that they are able to provide services to all of our sites and then, pay that special attention to our summer school sites. And then we also had the food bank come in several times, and they provided some meals for the weekends for some of our students that we knew had a greater need. And then also we were able to provide busing at all of the different locations. And so I do want to give a special thanks to Janae Basinger-Bren, Brandon Cheeks, and then also Krista DeVoe. Those were our directors. And then Tiffany Lowe, before she changed positions, she was the person from the district office that helped support the summer school program. Some highlights for elementary. We served 577 students. That was an increase of about 60 students. And as you can see, we had different size classrooms. We have a larger number of classrooms in some of those smaller, lower grades, or kindergarten or 7th grade. And really the number of students or the number of classrooms we have is based upon the need of the students and the students that were identified. We were able to have one pre-kindergarten class this year that actually was at Cottonwood, and that was kind of an experiment for us. We were able to pilot it, and that teacher was really excited to bring that preschool, and then we'll see that expanding this summer. We were able to maintain a reading level as we went into the new school year of 90%. And what that means is that as they looked at what the students performed at in the spring, were they able to maintain or not regress over the summer? And so 90% of the students that were involved in summer school, we didn't see any kind of summer school or summer slide. And so really excited about those numbers there. And then we also had an increased kind of partnership with the Salina Public Library, and they actually provided over 1,000 books for the students to keep. And so that was really a nice thing for us to be able to provide some resources to our families. At the middle school, we were able to serve 70 students, and that really was quite a reduction in number of students. And so one of the things that our director of secondary will be doing is working with the middle school staff and really trying to make sure they understand, why we had that decrease in number and try to pull that back up this upcoming summer. But what we were able to serve is 26 sixth graders, you see 25 seventh graders, and then 19 eighth graders. One of the things that's exciting about the middle school program is that they really kind of blend that social emotional instruction with project-based learning. So they're focused on math and reading and using the novels that they read in for the ELA aspect to drive some of that STEM and that PBL projects. And so kind of that topic from the novel then allowed the students to create and the teachers to create different things to do. One of the books was about survival skills. And so their project was about how to survive in different kinds of situations. One of the books was about kind of Greek gods, and the lightning thief, I think, was part of that title there. And they were able to look at some of the different things of how to look at that analogy over time with the different kind of traditional texts, and then also with they also looked at working within iReady with math, and so within the math instruction, that fed into some of the projects that they were doing. And so like one of the books was looking at being able to measure and being able to look at different sizes of space and how to use a compass and just kind of using different kinds of technical tools. And then also our 8th graders actually went on a couple of different community outings that got to learn how to use City Go Bus and just kind of get out into the community just a little more as they're going from 8th grade to 9th grade. With the high schools, what we see here is that we had about 513 students that were served. And when you look at the credit recovery, we had 340 students able to recover a credit. We had 15 students complete enrichment classes, which that number is down just a little bit from the summer before. Driver's education course, we had 109 permits earned, and then also we had 47 students participate in the ACT prep. We did see a little bit of decrease in our enrichment, our driver's ed, and our ACT prep courses, but if you think about last summer, or the summer of '21, that was a summer coming from where we did not have a summer school opportunity. So we did see a little bit of a spike last year in those types of classes that are those kind of one-shot type classes. But our credit recovery, we actually were able to see that we were able to serve, we had more credits earned, about 11 more credits earned than what we did the summer before. And so with this, we had a completion rate increase by 5% as we looked at how our students did. We had 10 more credits earned. We maintained a smaller number of students. And then also, one of the things that Mrs. DeVoe packet, and so for next summer, or for this summer, our 2023 summer school proposal is that we would have a program from May 30th through June 30th. That date allows us, those dates allows us to basically end the school year, allow our secondary schools to look at students that may have not passed some courses, making sure that we have a good enrollment into those credit recovery classes, and also gives those teachers a little bit of time to get materials ready for summer school. And we end before the 4th of July weekend. What we have found traditionally is that families coming into July is tough for them, and so we try to end it before the July 4th holiday, and so right now we'll have a May 30th through June 30th program window. Our elementary programs will have 2 different sites again. We do not have sites determined, and so that'll be based upon numbers. We'll look at the numbers of students that we have at the different schools and also our projected directors to help us identify the elementary programs, and then also looking at some of the projects that are happening in our elementary buildings. Our secondary program will be at South High School, and so I know you just saw that parking was on the agenda, and so really the parking lot, they've already kind of looked at the number of slots, and so that has been planned for, and so they will be making sure they communicate very clearly with families about where they'll need to park during the summer school. And we have both the middle school and the high school students attend at South High School. The director will be Krista DeVoe again this year, and so her being able to work out of South High School, the building that she is at during the school year, really allows her to be able to kind of capitalize on utilizing the staff that's there, also knowing the staff and being able to utilize that building. And this will be the 3rd year that we've had it at South High School. The times that you'll see are from 8 to 1 for elementary, and we'll have breakfast served and then also lunch served. And then for elementary, we serve that lunch kind of a little around 11:30 or noon, so that way we kind of have them go to lunch and then have a little bit more instruction before they go home for the day. Our middle school is from 8 to 11. And then in the packet, you'll see that we have our different programs that are listed for the high school, and so those times vary. We have our ACT prep program, which is a very short program to get ready for that June test, and then with driver's ed, we have a lot of variance on the times that they go to that class because they need to get in driving time and all of that. And then you also see in the packet that we have our traditional credit recovery courses, and we'll have 2 different time slots for them from 8 to 11 and 11:30 to 2:30. So to give students the opportunity to have both morning and afternoon classes, and then also, to split up that time. But again, if we have students that have signed up for 2 courses and they need a 3rd, and they get done with one of the courses in credit recovery, the teachers are so flexible to meet their needs. And on the next thing that we have here is the enrollment fees, and so you'll see that elementary, one of the things that we're very proud of is to be able to provide elementary summer school at no charge, and so we use a combination. Basically for that one, we're mainly using our at-risk funds for elementary, and then at middle and high school, we're utilizing some of our ESSER funds for those programs. And so when we're looking at having no charge at elementary, no charge at middle school, but then at high school, there is no charge for credit recovery, but we do have a $110 charge for the elective courses. So those are courses that students choose to take. And right now we have Computer Apps 1, Computer Apps 2, and Speech are what we'll be offering. And that allows students to kind of get those courses out of the way to open up their schedule for other kinds of, maybe to be a pathway completer, to be able to get access to other types of electives, and so that we offer those courses, and that's been pretty traditional. And then we have the driver's education course, and that is a course that actually is a cost to the students, and actually tonight approved for us to apply for the grant. And that grant, we had a smaller grant last year where we were able to basically waive the tuition for students students that are financially eligible for that, and so we're really excited to be able to have that this year. Last year, I think we had close to 60 students that were able to take advantage of that grant. And then this year, we have the ACT preparation again, and it's a smaller fee because that course only goes for the 2 weeks, and that is a course that they choose to take. And so we are bringing this for an action item today. For the most part, all of our programming is very similar to what it's been over the last few years. I would expect us to have additional preschool classrooms this year, and we will be having the preschool at the same time as our elementary, so looking at the needs there. And then we always adjust the number of courses and the number of classes that we provide at the high school based upon student enrollment. Are there any questions?
Dana?
I have a couple.
Okay.
Can we turn the light on just so I can see my writing? Thank you. Thank you. The middle school, what numbers were we having at the middle school if 70 is really low?
I actually have that number right here in front of me. We had 128 the year before, and that 128 actually was a pretty high number for 21 compared to what we had had pre-COVID.
Okay.
So that was kind of an anomaly, and I think that might have been because, we didn't have summer school the summer of 20. And so, but yeah, the 21 data was higher than what we usually see.
Okay. And it looks to me like we were able to maintain retention in the elementary, which is measurable. We could measure at the high school credit recovery. How were we measuring middle school?
At middle school, they looked at iReady a little bit this year in the sense that they tried to give some of the math based upon kind of where the student was at. With the middle school, they really are focusing on that social emotional growth, and so we don't see as much targeted for the reading and the math. It really is trying to kind of get them connected back to middle school, learn their social emotional skills that they're going to need to be successful at middle school. But because of the length of the program, you're not seeing a lot of pre-test, post-test at the middle school. With iReady, we're going into the third year that we've had iReady at the middle school. That's one of the things that we're going to look at for this summer's programming, is making sure we have something that's a little stronger on our measurement.
Okay. No charge at middle school because of ESSER funds. What happens when ESSER funds run out?
We utilize our at-risk funds
Okay,
for
so we
that.
can do
So
that.
that's really been a no-charge situation for elementary and middle school for many years now.
Okay. And my last question, I remember after COVID, we did a math-English combination. And I know at that point, you guys really liked that because not everybody needed English if they needed math. Will we ever look at that again, or will that piece be part of the puzzle?
Well, one of the things that we allow for students to do is that if there's elementary students that don't want to be part of both math and reading, they might not go for the entire day. So they kind of structure that a little bit for some of those families so
Okay.
they can just go to one piece
Thank
of that. And so that's one of the things that they work on during the spring to see where those numbers are. But right now, as we were working with our teachers, having it for that one session really was very powerful in the sense that we were able to kind of meet the same number of students this year, even though we had 2 sessions last year.
Okay, awesome. Great job.
Mark?
I wanted to talk quickly about the elementary school's site selection. It makes sense what you said about based on where the students are going to come from. It makes all kind of sense to travel. But I wonder, are the building operators praying, don't choose my building and that kind of thing? Is there a rotation going on?
Well, one of the things is that with elementary, there has been a little bit more rotation there. One of the things that Chris Epson's department does is that their gentlemen and ladies that work in that department, when a school is having summer school, they may then have to go in and help that building, those building operators get that school ready. So it is something that we look at each year, and one of the things that we'll continue to talk about is making sure that we're looking at how do we meet the building needs of kind of our maintenance gentlemen and ladies to make sure that they can do their job to get us ready for August.
In full transparency, it is difficult at best, for them to get ready and do all of the building things that they need to do during the summer to make sure that we keep our facilities in tip-top shape. And so it takes a lot of strategy on Chris's part and on their staff's part. And so I appreciate their flexibility. And at some point, we will need to rotate back out of South High to allow some long-term facility maintenance kinds of things to happen. And we'll continue to engage in conversations about that. But yes, I do think that there is some, please don't pick me.
Yes. Jim?
Just real quick, you talked about the middle school using the combination of PBL, SEL. Without getting real deep into it, is there an example you could give of maybe one of the projects that would be used in project-based learning? And then when we say SEL, what is the social emotional piece that's tied to that we're looking at?
So, for example, at sixth grade, they read the book Hatchet. And so one of the things that the skills from reading that book was inferring, predicting, summarizing, ordering events on a timeline, text coding, annotating, critical thinking, problem solving, and then they had the iReady math component built in there as well. And so they utilized that novel to focus on, what is it that they need for the novel. And then with that, they built on discussions of healthy communication skills, respecting the voice and ideas of others, and then what to do when losing hope, relationship building, and conflict resolution. So they kind of tie in what are those social emotional skills that kind of go into that novel and support that novel. And then with that particular one, the PBL activities were survival skills. And so they talked about building fires, using compasses, building a crossbow and paper airplanes, tying knots, soap carving, and designing a scavenger hunt. So they really try to do things that get the students kind of thinking from the perspective of, they're learning that novel, but putting it across other kinds of contexts of what does this novel have to do with some of the other kinds of things that with the math or just critical thinking skills. So that would be an example. And each year they've kind of focused on a particular novel and then expand on that to build a PBL. So it kind of depends upon what would those particular projects will be based upon the novel.
Do we need action on this?
Yes, we would need action for this.
We approve the 2023 summer school program as presented.
Thank you. Any second? Dana seconds. Any more discussion on this topic before we vote? Then all in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried 6-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next part of the agenda is the discussion agenda, and so we are starting by talking about unified bowling with Greg Merring and Ryan Stewart.
Good evening. If you remember about a year ago about this time, we came to you with the proposal for unified bowling. And today you got to meet our unified bowlers, which is awesome. And I get chills every time I talk about our unified bowling team. You got to meet them not because it's their first year, but their success. And Mr. Stewart's going to talk about that. But if you'd see their faces, and I'm going to talk a little bit about when we had our first bowling meet at home. We had four meets. 2 were in Salina. We went to Hutchinson, and then we also went to Cheney. And bowled against Goddard. And then we also had districts, and so we went back to Cheney. So got lucky that we got a bowl on that place again, and then we went to state. But again, Ryan will talk about that. But we gave them their T-shirt, and if you'd have seen not only our athletes, and our athletes are the intellectual disabled students, but our partners as well, and how they glowed and were excited to represent their schools in this fashion. It was amazing, and I still get chills thinking about that. We had 12 bowlers this year, which is a pretty good start. 6 athletes, and again, those are our intellectual disabled students, and then we had 6 partners, which is our regular students. And we hope in the future that maybe sometime we'll be able to have a central team and a south team, but right now that's not feasible with the number of students participating from Salina Central at this point. But money well spent, And I'm just excited that you guys gave us permission to do that, and we are excited about it, and it will continue to grow. The season lasted about 7 weeks, and we had, again, 4 competition dates and then postseason as well. And then we had 2 great coaches. We picked the right people to lead that program, with Mr. Miller being patient and knowing the skills of bowling, and then with Mrs. Vandercreek as well as our assistant, who actually works with some of those students as well. But they did an excellent job, and thank you for allowing us to have that, because, man, you just don't know what we've done for those students, and just the pride and joy that they bring wearing their uniform to represent their school.
Thank you.
Greg did a really good job, but we did have plenty of success. And Unified Bowling it's been the highlight for sure of my year. The kids are just, I want to do one of the celebrations actually, but I don't know if I'm on camera. But they just lit up, all of them. And like he said, the partners probably lit up just as much. And that was the part that was really, really neat. I echo what he said about the coaches. As far as the postseason and the success we had, well, before the regular season, we were either first or second. Oftentimes had multiple teams. We had 12 kids here tonight. Only 3 to 5 got to go to the regional team. And I say 3 to 5 because it's your choice. And we decided to do a team of 5, and we had 3 of our athletes and 2 partners, which was a good decision by our coach. And we actually took 4th out of 5. There were 3 regionals. There's 40 total schools in the state that have unified bowling. We were one of 12 to join year 2. So it's a Acacia event. This is the 2nd year. And they had 3 regionals. We were top 5 out of each regional get in, and we were 4th out of 5. And then when you looked at the projected scores, we were actually predicted to be 14th out of 15 at the state tournament, based upon what we bowled at regional. And then we ended up taking 3rd. And we talked about it while we were sitting over there. We probably should have brought the trophy, but we have a state trophy, and those kids were just glowing with it, and it was pretty neat. And we were well represented. Mrs. Exline was there, and they all got a T-shirt. I don't know how that happened, but we were pretty excited about all that, and everything was just really, really cool. So I don't know if you guys have any questions about it. I will do the celebration if you want me to. There were 6 athletes, 6 partners. Out of our athletes, 4 of the 6 were freshmen. And then our partners, we did have 3 seniors, so we do need to kind of recruit that. That was a little bit of a sticking point at the beginning. Keisha wasn't sure if they were going to allow our actual bowlers because the bowlers can be in a league, and if they were going to be in unified bowling, then they were going to tell them that they couldn't be in a league, but they changed that, which I think was a very good decision on their part. But we do want to make sure we recruit the partners. So what questions do you have about it?
I first off want to thank you for doing it, but for moving this forward. But I think it's appropriate to share that I got to visit with some parents last night of folks in the unified bowling, and the parents are thrilled at the growth they've seen in their students, even the partners, learning to self-regulate because they're now teaching someone how to self-regulate, and the pride that goes with that. So it's very valuable on many levels, so thank you.
Mark, you have something?
I just wanted to echo thanks as well. I've realized you guys are leaders and helping move everybody along, so I'm glad to hear about the good progress, and I hope the numbers grow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, yes. Next on the discussion agenda is building bridges with Dr. Stevens.
All right, good evening. May it please the board tonight, I want to provide you an update with the 2nd annual Building Bridges event held November 3rd at Central High School. The purpose of Building Bridges is to help develop connections between educators, students, business, and industry. And we had a big night. Kansas Workforce One, Salina Chamber of Commerce, and a lot of USD 305 representatives as well as businesses across Salina participated. This year there were over 100 people who participated. Visitors had a meet and greet session at the very beginning, and we are going to work on trying to improve that next year to get a little bit more interaction so we have an opportunity to network. It was a little bit kind of bifurcated in the room, and so we're going to work on trying to mix that up a little bit better. But everybody was enjoying the culinary delights, the hors d'oeuvres that were prepared. One such favorite treat was the ever so challenging to make baklava. So, yeah, if you left there hungry and your blood sugar wasn't a little bit elevated, you're a more disciplined person than I am. So, our focus this year was continuing the Salina legacy of fostering entrepreneurship. There have been so many great companies out of Salina, Kansas, started by Salinians, and visitors had a chance to kind of interact and celebrate that. But we also, one of the things I think needs to be celebrated about this community is we have one of the higher per capita of entrepreneurs in the state of Kansas and Salina. Many of the bulk solid industry, movers and shakers, Salina is kind of a destination for engineers across the globe. Guests got an opportunity to hear from Superintendent Exline as well as Tom Christie, the co-founder of GeoProbe. And Mr. Christie provided some, just articulated so many great messages, but keen insights into the challenges and the rewards of being an entrepreneur. Patrons toured CTE area facilities at Central. You'll recall last year it was at South. And students had an opportunity to present their projects, weigh in on questions that they had from business and industry. And business and industry had a chance to also help us try to make sure that our curriculum remains viable and relevant by addressing some of the needs they're seeing in their areas. Overall, educators and students, as they were sharing, we were able to talk about some of the challenges that we're facing in Salina, specifically in industrial arts, and being able to recruit and hire staff in those areas. That's been a big challenge. As we've had an industrial arts position open in 305 for a while, we're working on addressing that. So it was a good opportunity to interact with them and have an opportunity as well to hear from them. Overall, what I would tell you is we had approximately 21 businesses, 3 civic engagement entities, 2 government, and 2 education groups. I really need to thank Patty Fiorillo, who retired recently. Patty Fiorillo worked for our district for over 20 years and was an incredible force in our office, as well as David Cooper and Marty Maddock, who helped us organize and do a lot of behind-the-scenes work, as well as our counselors and administrators and teachers and students that presented. It was just really cool to kind of walk around the event and hear from everybody. Last year, I know that we had a little bit more extensive presentation. It was our inaugural event, so most of this many of you are aware of. But one highlight we did want to talk about with our business and industry was the passing of House Bill 2442 about limit liability that allows us to build stronger partnerships for work-based experiences for our students. So that was news to many entities. Mrs. Exline also presented that at Great Plains and Kansas State University, had a meeting last week as well to kind of welcome more people to the table to get those kind of internships in place and get them rolling. So a lot of things were discussed. We had a great opportunity in doing that. Overall, I was pleased with the event. You never know how one of these are going to go and how many people are going to come out. We appreciate Jennifer Kamian's office with helping us get the word out and putting together a marketing plan that allowed us to spread the word on it. I'm going to yield the rest of the time for questions from you if you have any.
Any questions? Mark?
I wonder, just your opinion here, all of the effort we've gone into to create what I'll call the dual enrollment opportunities, a lot of those help prepare career pathways. I wonder if some of those relationships are starting to pay off in this event, whether for opportunities for students or employers in the community becoming more engaged in school. Just your perspective on that.
Well, a couple of things on that. One, I do believe they are paying off. I think people are still learning about it. And tonight's patron insight survey, I think, is a good indication that we are getting some of our messaging out there. But I am still surprised to kind of learn from business and industry that they might not be always aware of that. So I think we still have some work to do outside of, being a parent of a 8th grader going into 9th grade. I'm very aware of what concurrent partnerships need to be in place and be thinking about it. But I think sometimes folks in industry maybe don't have a student in school. And so just having that collaboration time to talk about it, the partnerships with K-State, Salina Area Tech, of course, with Bethany, Bridges program, the more we have an opportunity to spread the word on that in this type of venue and others, whether it's the Rotary Club, whether it's going out and talking to the community in some of the forums that we've had, I think the better chances we are to get all patrons that maybe don't necessarily have a student in K through 12 education aware.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
right, thank you.
Carry on. Next on the agenda is KESA, Kansas Education Systems Accreditation Update from Ms. Rector.
Good evening again. Just kind of remind everyone on the Kansas Education Systems Accreditation, KESA, that is a model for our K-12 accreditation. And so actually this particular slide was provided to you earlier in the year where we talked a little bit about kind of when we came off of our year 5 of KESA. And so now we're kind of back into that 5-year cycle again. And so as we talk about this, this is our way to make sure that each school district is meeting the needs of Kansas students. And it is based upon a 5-year cycle of continuous improvement, and we are actually beginning year 1. And so we are this fall, and so we've been doing lots of work ever since this summer. So kind of just to remind us that really our KESA goals are going to be focused on the strategic plan goals. And so looking at increased students' critical thinking skills, increased communication skills, and increased social emotional skills. And so kind of that example that we provided, or I provided with the middle school, you really saw those communication, critical thinking, and social emotional kind of embedded into that summer school program. And so as we work through this year, we'll be looking at what our goals are, and then also working through how do we meet those needs of our students, and kind of how do we look at our district and look at our building needs. We do a needs assessment during this first year, and really that needs assessment happens each and every year, but this is a real pivotal year because we're starting a new accreditation cycle. And then as this month and then next month, we will be kind of finalizing our goals, and so we will have our measurable goals set in place by February of 2023. And so over during the year of this first year of KESA, from July through December, we were working with our district, and our building needs assessment is basically conducted. And so we started in July with our principals and looked at a lot of disaggregated data and modeled some of the root cause analysis and some of the data systems that we want to be looking at during the school year. So they've been working on their needs assessment, and that needs assessment from our buildings will be due here in January. From that, we're also looking at those to identify our district needs assessment and looking at kind of what they've identified at the buildings and then building off of that. And you will be seeing this information coming back to you over the next few months as we look you look as a board at the needs assessments. From January to May, this is when we're going to be looking at those long-range continuous improvement plans will be developed, and these are going to really be developed over that 5-year cycle. It will continue to adjust as our buildings work through this, but really they're looking at what is their overall vision for that 5-year cycle, and how are they working towards those big overarching goals that we'll talk about here in just a few minutes. And then in April we'll have the visitation. So we basically ended our year 5 with our outside visitation team coming and looking kind of at our overall, what we were performing at for the 5 years, and kind of as we looked forward. And so we'll take that forward look that we ended with them and start again. And so then they'll come for the year 1 here in May. And then there's also reporting that is due to the Kansas State Department of Education for that year 1. So really kind of monitoring where we're at and how do we go forward. When we think about our year 1 goal setting, so when we talk about critical thinking growth measures, earlier we brought to you that we were going to have goals set in math for that critical thinking. And so we're using our Kansas State Assessment System for us to be able to look at kind of those big overarching goals that we would have as a district. And the buildings and the district will work on smaller goals and things that we can kind of measure in the short term. But when we look at that big overarching goal, for math, we're looking at thinking about the patterns of raising the number of students to be above grade level. So when we look at levels 3 and 4, those are really an indicator of above grade level. And when you look at level 1, that is below grade level. And so our state assessment basically has 4 different levels that students are measured in. And so we're looking at pushing our students that are above grade level, increasing that number, and then our students that are below grade level, decreasing that number. And really that follows that accountability aspect that we see from the State Department. So currently, we are at a 25% of our students are at a level 3 or 4 on the math. And so we have set a goal that we will be increasing that number by 10% during the accreditation cycle. So students will have the critical thinking skills to achieve post-secondary success as measured by a 10% increase in the number of students performing at a level 3 or 4, which is above grade level, on the Kansas Math Assessment by 2027. And so what we would see in 2027 is that our aim would be at 35%. So increasing from 25% to 35%, and this would be above what we see now as the state average, which is at 29. So thinking through this kind of statement, you're going to see this statement repeated, and this is the kind of the foundation that we have for each one of these goals. And so we have the levels 3 and 4 for math at that higher level, and then we also need to think about our students that are not performing at grade level. So those would be the students that are scoring at a level 1. And so right now we have 37% of our students are scoring at a level 1 on the Kansas Math Assessment. And so what we would see is that we would decrease this by 12% to get that to 25%. And so they would be decreasing by 12%. So students will have the critical thinking skills to achieve post-secondary success as measured by a 12% decrease in the number of students performing at a level 1 below grade level on the Kansas Math Assessment by 2027. And so what these goals do is it kind of sets that bigger picture of what we'll be working on over the next 5 years. And so if we have critical thinking, we're looking at math. We also have critical thinking, we're looking at science, so looking at that science assessment. So students will have the critical thinking skills to achieve post-secondary success as measured by a 10% increase in the number of students performing at level 3 or 4. You see that same pattern repeating, and so right now we're currently at a 29% in science, and so we would hope to raise that to a 39% of our students performing at above grade level, and that is higher than the state average of 31. When we look at reducing the number of students below grade level for science, we're looking at 11% decrease here. And so right now our students are performing at 41% of our students are below grade level. And so we reduce that to a 30%, which is above the state level of 39%, below the state level of 39%. And so what we did is we looked at working with our building principals, we looked at our data, looking at our 3s and 4s over the last few years, looking at our level 1s, looking at the trend data, and then working also from the perspective of what you would expect to see in 5 years that helped us set these goals. And so for critical thinking, we have math and science. For communication, we are setting a goal for communication based upon our Kansas reading assessment. So currently we're at 28%. For our students that are performing at a level or 3 or 4, we would increase that by 10%. So be at a level, or so be at 38%, which is above the 32% Kansas average. For reducing the number of students below grade level, we are at currently a 38% of our students are below grade level. We would decrease that to 25%, so it's a 13% decrease, which is below the state average of 34%. For social emotional growth measures, we have 2 different types of measure that we're using here. So for social emotional growth, to achieve post-secondary success, we're going to see a 15% decrease in the number of social emotional behaviors by 2027. And so our social emotional behaviors as part of our discipline kind of matrix that we look at, we would be reducing the number of discipline referrals from 2,722 to 2,313. So that would be a 15% decrease, and that would be looking across our district. And we're looking at those social emotional measures are identified as skills that are discipline referrals that we believe would be based upon social emotional skills that need to be strengthened. Looking at students for social emotional skills to achieve post-secondary success, we talked last time about chronic absenteeism, and so we do have a goal on chronic absenteeism. Right now, we're at 33% chronically absent. We would reduce that by 15% to be at 18%, which is below the state pre-COVID number of 19%. So for each of these goals, we're looking at moving our district scores to being better than the state average, and then also looking at making sure that we are making progress to either increase the number of students that are above grade level and decreasing the number of students that are below grade level. And so these are our overarching goals, and like I said, our needs assessment, our building needs assessment will identify the little goals and steps that we need to do along the way to be able to meet these goals. But these will basically be our measure over the next 5 years, and so we have the ability to look from kind of that big picture and make sure that this is what we are striving for. And so I will bring these goals back to you in January for an action item. And so I just wanted to make sure that you had these goals available to you, and then recognize that over the last few months, we've been working with our buildings, we've been looking at the data, and then our buildings are going through a similar process where they are identifying their building goals, and those are going to be part of their needs assessments that will be due in January. And then we will be working together as a district from the building needs assessments to identify kind of how we want to move forward as a district to support those buildings in meeting those goals. Because each building will have its unique barriers, and they also have their unique strengths as well. So this is just basically to kind of give you an update. We will go into more details in the months to follow, but we wanted to kind of tell you where we were on the KISA process at this time. Any questions?
Thank you. No questions? Oh, Dr. Andre, yes.
So at the recent Kansas Association of School Boards conference, I went to a session done by the superintendent and board chair from Clearwater. And in full disclosure, the superintendent was a fraternity brother of mine. That's part of the reason I went. But he used to be in Abilene as well, so a lot of folks here know him. Anyhow, his session was about, they're on the same cycle in KISA. They had just finished going through similarly redoing mission and vision statement and setting goals, and he talked about how they advertise those goals to the community. Going back to somewhat of the survey said earlier and things Dr. Stevens said as well, just making sure the community understood all these things. So I guess where all that's leading is, assuming we approve things in a month and we move in the right direction, how do we go about not only making sure the principals and the teachers and students know about these things, but the community does as well?
So one of the things that I think that we're very fortunate to have is, Jennifer's office does a fabulous job of sending out information. We will have information too that will go out in newsletters, sharing it with building site councils, bringing information back to this forum to discuss where we're moving and what we're looking at. When you think about that 99% of agreement with these three areas, critical thinking, communication, and social emotional skills, that's really exciting. But I think that, Mark, we do need to have that charge of, we need to make sure that we're fully communicating, because this is what our students are experiencing, this is what our teachers are working so hard, and we need the support of our parents and our community to be able to meet these goals. And so we will continue to communicate and try to increase that communication and make sure that this is something that we're building upon, that they spoke to us about these three things, and we want to make sure that we speak to them to say this is where we're at and this is how we're moving forward.
Part of the reason I mention it is, I think the last time we had somebody present at a public forum, they were worried about, I think they talked about, we spend these many dollars per student and we'd like to get better results out of those things, which is a fair concern. So if we can say, hey, we're doing these things, that addresses that public forum comment.
And I think that when we look at this, we're going to look at it from that multiple prong approach. So these are kind of those big overarching goals, but one of the things that we'll also need to report on are some of those other types of measures that we look at. We have lots of different types of assessments. We have our iReady assessments. You know, we'll talk about the rubrics that I spoke to you about last year, you know, looking at critical thinking, communication, social emotional, more on that classroom level and measuring our student growth over that. So I think that what we need to make sure is that we not only have Kansas assessments to tell us how we're doing, but we also have other types of measures that may have more context and meaning for our community.
You'll recall that when we started the strategic planning process, one of the things that we committed to was that we would give reports to the public about our progress on the goals that were based upon that community input. So to that end, I have charged the Public Information Office with creating a one-page update of progress related to the 5 outcomes that are at the state level. So what are we doing on kindergarten readiness? What are we doing on post-secondary success? What is our data saying on graduation rate? What about social emotional learning and individual plans of study, okay? Then we will also have a progress report specific to communication, critical thinking, and the social emotionals dual, because it really goes with both. So we met here in the last week and a half and talked about what measures could we put on those state outcomes, the big 5, and then these, once you adopt them, because the strategic plan is something, they were board level listening sessions, this is the board level goals that were selected as part of that listening plan, those listening sessions. So as soon as you have adopted these, then these will be woven into that. And then in addition, we will have some baseline data on the rubrics that are with the project-based learning that don't have to just be used with project-based learning, because they really are, here's what just really good teaching looks like when students are learning well how to communicate, social emotional skills, and good critical thinking skills. So we'll have those as well. Okay, so there definitely is a public information campaign. We are committed to that, and as you heard tonight, I know that Jennifer's office can help us get the word out, and then those are things that when I'm out in public, I'll definitely be sharing as well.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
I was maybe just going to comment real quick. I think that that's so important because we might say these are USD 305 schools, but there are community schools. And it doesn't take just the ownership of the staff. It doesn't take just the ownership of the teachers. It takes the ownership of the community when we talk about things like chronic absenteeism and things like that. And it's for the entire community to lift that up. I think it's hard sometimes to focus on that big 5-year goal, though, because we can't be impulsive and shuck and jive all the time to do the next best thing. We've got to really be committed as a community and as a district to do this for our students.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Thank you, Mr. Rector. Next on the agenda is the school board reports and upcoming dates of importance. We don't have anything listed as an upcoming date of importance. I will add that the next school board meeting is January 10th, so I'll call that a date of importance. We welcome Bonnie to our midst here. Thank you for being here. I think we'll start with you, Bonnie, if you're willing to give us the report on what happened.
Well, I wasn't planning on being here this early, but
That's all right, and we
yeah,
understand
I think I went to the legislative luncheon, which was very interesting, and to see where the legislators and the superintendents talking together and doing some communication, which was good. And I think one of the big things I found there was that out of all the superintendents that represented, the schools from in the area, there's only one that had all of their positions filled, and everybody else didn't, so that was concerning.
Thank you. Mr. Grant.
Nothing official to report. I too attended the Smoky Hill Education Service Center Legislative Luncheon and KSB conference. in Wichita.
Thank you. Dana?
I delivered a You Make a Difference award to Shelby Davis, and while I was there, the Crossroads Marathon took three different groups, and I can't remember who the other two were, but they donated $6,335 to the school marathon, and so they took pictures at sunset and of the kids in their medals and T-shirts, and so that's somewhere on social media. So that was very nice of them. Attended a CKCIE board meeting. I want to compliment Jeff Hayes. You do such a nice job running that meeting. It's tough conversations, and I always appreciate how you run that meeting. Equity Council meeting, which was great as well, and the conference.
Jim?
Of course, conference, during that, Superintendent Nexline and I got to graduate from the Leadership for Tomorrow program. I would highly recommend that for other board members. Maybe next year it'd be nice. It's nice to get around to different districts and have conversation with board members from other districts, all different prerogatives, superintendents, and see challenges that other districts have that are, you know, somewhat different than ours and some the same. Salina Ed Foundation, we had their monthly meeting, got to deliver a You Make a Difference award at South High. And last night I got to go to the South High football banquet and kind of celebrate there a little bit. But it was just a reminder of the time that our coaches and our staff put in for our students. It's not just school from 7 in the morning till 3. The teachers, the staff, the coaches are there. They're taking our kids all over the state. They're showing them how to be good athletes, how to be good citizens, and I really thought that was great.
I also attended the conference in Wichita. Attended a little bit longer than I did from the previous year, and it was really actually interesting. So hopefully, if I go again next year, I'll do the whole thing. So very, very interesting conference. Also Heartland, if you know of anybody that's retired that just wants to volunteer, give some of their time, that would be a great place for them to get engaged and work with the little kids and help us get started from the ground roots up. And so anything that you can do to help them improve their staffing would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Mark?
I attended the KASB conference like most everybody else. Again, great conference. You heard my comments from Mr. Cooper at Clearwater. Ms. Rector, I also understand that you talked about summer and driver's ed earlier. I understand Ms. Casso has some good tips to deliver to driver's ed in that too, so you might want to keep that in mind along the way. For the Smoky Hill Education Service Center, since we last gathered, I attended the November and the December board meetings of that group, as well as the legislative luncheon, which really was good. I'm always amazed at the legislative luncheon, and it helps remind me that these people are human too, because there's things we take for granted about knowledge, like for financing in general, that some things they just don't know about. And I had good hallway discussion with a couple of the representatives in the hallway, and it's just nice to see their perspective. One thing folks should be aware of for Smoky Hill Education Service Center, remember they have the contract to provide the education for Lawrence Gardner High School, which is the state juvenile detention center in Topeka. They lost an employee, a gentleman passed away unexpectedly of a heart attack earlier this month. So not only are they dealing with a very hard to fill position, the gentleman happened to be in charge of some of their most at-risk students, which is saying something in the juvenile detention, but he was a past NFL football player of Samoan ancestry, apparently a really big man that had a teddy bear type of personality and really dealt well with the students. But in addition to trying to do those things, this is Smoky Hill's first time in many, many, many years, thankfully, dealing with all of the human resources ramifications of losing a current employee. So they're dealing with a lot of things there that I think we should keep in mind. I got to help with 2 more dates of Ms. Mahoney's medical internship interviews at Salina South. And just again, Lynn was there for one of them, how rewarding it is to see young people in action. And they're scared to death because here's a bunch of old strangers trying to teach them how to interview, and just how rewarding it is to see them grow even in 15 minutes together. So if you ever get the chance, I know Dan has done it before, they're really neat opportunities. And we'll conclude with, I got to give Ms. Zajac her You Make a Difference award at the Kennedy Heartland facility. And the last time I was in that building, was to give the building operator his award about 2 years ago. And lo and behold, he was the first person I saw when I walked in this time. So it was neat to reconnect with him. I got a de facto tour of the building because Ms. Zajak's room turns out is about as far from the office as you can get. So I saw more of Kennedy than I've seen in a long time. An especially rewarding thing there, remember this is a preschool classroom. When we walked in, Ms. Zajac was holding a child who I would guess is maybe 15 months old, and she immediately wanted to reach out to me. So I felt affirmed in the opportunity as well, being able to recognize Ms. Zajac. So it was a good month, and I appreciate the opportunities.
Thank you. I attended the legislative luncheon. It was some spirited conversation between the school districts and the legislators and among the school district representatives. I attended the KASB convention in Wichita. It was good to spend time with our own members. It's in a relaxed setting. That was what I appreciated most about it. I also attended the Chamber Board meeting and the Parks and Rec Board meeting. I gave out a You Make a Difference Award to Corey Atchison. He was actually mentioned at the previous board meeting, but I hadn't given him the award yet then because he is a bus driver for Durham, and you don't find him so much at a school. And I talked to Durham, and his fellow bus drivers were having a staff meeting out at their office, which is out by K-State Salina. And so I got to surprise him by embarrassing him in front of his coworkers with this award, and I do think he was really touched by it. He's kind of a big, tough guy, and I think he was touched to get this award in front of all of his peers. I attended the Dunbar School 100th celebration of several parts of it, which was really interesting, and it was fun for me. There were alumni that were mentioned from Dunbar School that were classmates of my mom, who graduated in Salina in 1945, I guess. And they were people I knew when I was growing up. The last thing I have on my list, I guess there are a couple things. Not the last thing. I did help judge the Coronado Chili Contest, and I took it very seriously, and I could see that people who had judged it before came in, they ate, they were gone, and they put their decisions in the box within about a minute, and here I am studiously tasting my chili. But anyway, it was delicious. I took part in the KASB President's Call, which happens once a month, but it's usually on a day that we have our agenda meeting, so I can't attend, but it worked out this month to participate, so that was good to meet and talk to some of the other regional school board presidents. Finally, I've been in the schools the last couple weeks doing songwriting workshops with elementary students, so I've been at Meadowlark working with fifth graders, and today and yesterday I was at Oakdale working with fourth graders, and it's great fun. So thank you. And next is the superintendent's report.
Okay, just a couple updates. First, I did go to a community-wide workforce development event where President Linton from KSU was here. And as part of that event, I was able to share what we were doing as far as workforce development through our individual plans of study, through our internships, through our high school career counseling, building bridges, our post-secondary partnerships. And I did end up with some questions about the opportunity for us to do work-based learning for credit as part of that. And so that was just a really great outreach experience, and I appreciated being included in that. I, too, participated in the Dunbar 100th anniversary celebration, and they had several events that were really neat for our community and for the families. And USD 305 was presented a print of the first class from Dunbar School outside the school building, and it's down in my office if you want to see it. It's just really special. And then also a painting done by the oldest living Dunbar alumni, and it's of the front facade of the building, and just fun. And so both of those are in my office if you're interested and would like to see them. Pretty special. I wanted you to know, just wanted to give a shout out again to the Credit Union of America and Project Teacher. Yesterday, we presented school supplies for 300 students that they provided for us, and those this year went to Schilling. And so the students will be getting new school supplies, and that will be really special for them. We are continuing to work on school safety, and we released the second video, the second school safety video, and thank you to Jennifer and her department for their work on that. They have to do quite a bit of editing when they're taping me. Our administrators did begin threat assessment training, and that training will be expanded to include other team members as well, because a comprehensive threat assessment program really does require a multidisciplinary team. Right now, we're starting with administrators. I didn't want to pull too many people out of the building at the same time. We're struggling with substitutes, and so we're going to piecemeal that a little bit. And then this summer, we will have the level 2 training where the entire team will be together from each one of the buildings. And so that's going to be a really positive move for our district in terms of school safety. And then I wanted to let you know the transitions team is going to be hosting us tomorrow, the students at Transitions, for a lunch. And then they are working toward a date after the holidays where they will invite you to come, and they will be hosting you for lunch. And then the final comment I'd like to make is that I have been working with the Chamber of Commerce and the other public entities and the other educational institutions on the chamber legislative policies. We'll talk about our own legislative platform tonight, but there is a community-wide chamber-based platform that is in the works as well.
Thank you. In our packet, we have the Heartland Early Education Update, which we should all pay attention to. And the next on the agenda is the executive session for personnel. We'll need for that
Let's do 15.
15 minutes. Can we get a motion for that?
Madam President,
Oh, Jim.
I move that the Board of Education go into executive session at 7:10 for 15 minutes for the purpose of discussing the contractual obligations of non-elected personnel, because if this matter were discussed in open session, it might invade the privacy of those discussed, and that the Board of Education reconvene into open session at 7:25 in the SEC room.
Do we have a second? Mark, okay. It's been moved and seconded that we go into executive session for personnel, et cetera. If there's no discussion, all in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried, 7-0. Thank you. We will call the meeting back to order, and we have some action from our executive session. Dr. Bandry.
Madam President, I move the board accept the resignation of Linda Ponton effective as of December 12th, 2022, and that we waive the assessment of liquidated damages.
Do I hear a second? Mr. Gardner seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried 6-0. And another motion, Dr. Bandry?
Indeed, I move that the board grant the leave request for Reagan Schamberg as presented.
Second, do I have a second? Jim seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried 6-0. This will conclude the live stream of our meeting. We are going to have a work session on our legislative issues. Thank you for watching, if you have been watching, and let's move to the other.